Welcome students to class 12 English classes conducted by your English teacher Monica Kaur. Before I initiate Flamingo, please I would like to request you to like, share and subscribe my channel. Poem 2, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, Part 1. Hello students, once again welcome to class 12 English classes conducted by your English teacher Monica Kaur. Today I am going to take up Flamingo's poem number 2, and this poem is written by Stephen Spender, and the name of the poem is An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. So before I initiate with the outline of the poem, student, let's talk about the creator of this poem, that is Stephen Spender. Now let's talk about Stephen Spender. Stephen Spender was born in London on 28 February 1909. He was a great poet and a great essayist. From his time, he became the pioneer, an inspiration, a leader for those who wanted to write something. His more focus was on social and political problems occurring that time in the country. He was a great pacifist also. He had put a great pressure on the education delivery. He wanted that the education should be given to all the children, and that must be in equal amount, so that even the children, those who are poor, they would get a chance to recover from their poverty and let their parents also recover from that life. He was a great writer, and some of his notable writings are just now I am going to tell you. He writes Poem of Dedication. This is that collection of everything. Then he writes The Edge of Being. Then he writes The Creative Element. And there he writes The God That Failed. And this was his notable and such a popular book in 1949. Now, in this poem, he had talked about the basic points on which the pillar of this poem has been standing. Let's talk about that, guys. The first value-based point of this poem is, number one, that this is a lyrical poem. Okay. Number two, that this poem is all about young slum children. Okay, and this poem also put emphasizes on what that slum children live really an unpleasant life. They are not only fighting with the poverty, they are fighting with the different type of the diseases that they have inherited from their parents. Okay, then the last point of this poem is really very much important, because this poem pays importance of education, and this poem also shows that teachers have a significant role in imparting that education. Teacher should not discriminate between a student, whether that student belongs to the rich class or to the economic poor or the weaker section class. It should not matter to the teacher, and he or she should impart the education equally to all the students. This poem tells us about the theme. Now, these value-based points tells about the two themes of this poem, students. One is poverty. Poverty is that basic theme of this. Another basic theme of this poem is what? Social injustice and class inequalities. That even the institutions which make the great leaders, which make the scientists, which make the human beings, they are also not at all away from the discrimination germ, discrimination disease. They do actually discriminate between that statusful children and between that poor children. That's why the education is being divided into the two parts. The best education to the statusful children and the not so good or worst education, or even the zero type of the education to the weaker section students. So this poem talks about all these inequalities of the poem. Students, this poem tells us that how already the poor children, those who are suffering a lot with the different type of the diseases, and because of the less of the money, they are not able to cure themselves. Even in the institution, in the educational institution, they are the sufferer most. The education is just on the namesake of the statusful, powerful political leaders. It is the show off of the affluent and the riches, where they did not want them to be the same as they are. But in this poem, Stephen Spender put an emphasis that every child has their own path of freedom. They should have the wings to fly away in the whole of the sky. They should have their part of enlightenment. They should have at least a one chance to make them to have the pen or a lightened pen in the history. They have this opportunity to let them be out of that poverty because of that education. This poem emphasizes and requested the bureaucrats, the politicians, the charitable institutions, okay, to come up with the real education. The building in the slum area in the name of the school would not going to change anything else. So students, this poem actually refers to the inequalities in the education also, where Shakespeare is a symbol of education for the statusful people, but for the slum area students, their school is just having that poster to be pasted on the wall, which wall has been faded, the side of the wall has been faded. Shakespeare is nothing else, just a fake dream for them. Maps are just a fake dreams for them. The beautiful Australia's flower valleys are just out of their reach. They only see it, take a dream, and then they have to forget it. And this type of education should be stopped. What here in this poem we are going to study. So guys, let's start with the first paraphrasing of this poem with the poetic devices and its vocabulary. So students, let's start with the first paragraph. The first stanza of the poem actually tells us about number one, that about the children who are coming to study in that slum school, how they are. Because of that poverty, they are facing a lot of problems. Because of poverty, they are not able to have a proper comb. Because of poverty, their faces are really undernutrition. Because of their poverty, they are being attacked with a lot of diseases. And because of this, the education is like seems to be very far away from them. So let's start, students, over here. The first line of the stanza here is far, far. Now this far, far is being repeated by Stephen. Why? To just show us, and what he wanted to show us, that actually it is a repetitive stress, and why he has written far once again. The reason behind it is that it is showing that everything is really away from them. The things are very far away from them. They are not at all reachable to them. They are really out of their reach. And when the Stephen that has started this, so he is telling us that these children are gusty waves. Now what gusty means? Gusty waves here means that the sudden rush of strong winds, and means with a proper force, with a proper energy. But the faces of the children are showing that what they are not at all energetic. They are not at all that functional like the age of their children used to be. Okay, they are just like rootless weeds. Now here, why rootless weeds have been used by Stephen? Now because roots are the foundation. Roots in layman language means foundation of any human being, which is being laid in the childhood only. So in the childhood only, they are facing the phrases like rootless weeds. Now rootless is without a foundation of values, without a foundation of the culture. So that's why, because they do not have that status, values or culture, they are like thrown away plants which are in jungle of no use. So in this society, these children are unwanted children of the society, guys. Okay, so the children are unwanted and without any attachments. Their hair is not at all properly combed. Their faces are so pale because of the lack of the nutrition. And guys, they are what? That they are suffering from they are suffering from a lot of diseases. Now here, giving the example, Stephen tells us what, guys, that there is one tall girl. Here, tall refers as an adjective, that it is showing that it is older, that she is older in the class. But because of some disease, her head is much more bigger than her body, and because of that weight of the head, his head always been hanging like this only on her body, and it was it was because of not only disease, it was because her body was not, or her head was not able to take the burden of the poverty. And there is one more example that is being taken by Stephen in this paragraph only, that after this tall girl there was a paper seaming boy. There was a paper seaming boy, and here that why he had used this paper seaming boy metaphor over here to describe the boy, like his skin is as thin and white as paper because of the lack of food, because of the lack of the nutrition that at the age of them they wanted it. Okay, now another boy in the class is there. Now the third example in this paragraph is there, that a boy with the red eyes. Now again he had used means that compare the boy's eyes with the red eyes, because it indicates that what, that his eyes are really being greedy, and greedy not for stealing something, not for getting a very high amount or a profit, but his eyes were greedy, and he wanted to grab the good life. He wanted to be out of that poverty life. He wanted to reform his life from poor to somewhere else as mediocre, where he could live properly. So here he had used that red eyes. Okay, now another boy with one more, that deformity, that handicapped body, okay, which probably he had inherited from his father, because these children are too poor to get a rich amount, okay, or the amount or the good property from their fathers, but yes, they are getting what, diseases from their father. So that's why he is being called the higher. Higher means successor, who inherited the property of his or that his father. That is called higher, successor. So they are not the successor of getting money, getting a status, but they were the higher or the successor of what? Yes, diseases. So this boy had a gnarled disease. Gnarled means where your bones started twisting. They are being twisted automatically. It is by birth or due to the lack of the nutrition in your, or a calcium in your body. Okay, so the classroom is really very dark. It is poorly lit classroom. The bulb is there, but the teacher is not able to see the students, those who are sitting at the back. The light is not at all focusing whole of the faces of the children. One more boy is there in the class, sitting at the back of the class, unnoticeable. Because of dim light, because of darkness, the teacher is not able to see the face of that boy. And that is what he is able to skip the learning in the class. And when he skips the learning in the class, he is not at all paying any attention in the class. Rather, what he was doing, guys, in the class, that this boy was dreaming. The dreaming was of what, guys? The dreaming of escaping out into the open. That he wanted to get out from this poverty. He also wanted to be out like a free bird and move around with, that some of the status. Okay. And so here again the poet used what, guys? The poet used again a comparison of the what? Of the squirrel. You know, a squirrel, a small, that a small animal who used to that jump from one tree to another. That squirrel used to make its hole inside that tree, and whenever it wanted, it changed the house of itself. So the boy that is unnoticeable in the class wanted to be like a squirrel, who wanted to have a beautiful and open tree, or the open space tree for himself. He wanted to have a proper nourishment life. He wanted that he must be like a squirrel who has no limitations, who has not at all any fenced life. So this is how that his eyes are not in the class, but his eyes are outside the class, the tree where the squirrel's tree room was there. There was an open space in the tree which attracted that boy's attention, and he wanted to go out in open and live his life with a lot of fresh air and fresh breathing. Students, the life of poor people are really very tough, especially of the children, those who are being born but they are not being given a chargeable life. So guys, this was the paraphrasing of the first stanza. So now quickly let's take a look on to the vocabulary as well as the use of the poetic devices. Okay guys, so let's see it. The first is, let's see vocabulary. So guys, vocabulary, first word is gusty. Gusty means very high. Okay. The waves of the sea during the tsunami was really very gusty, very high. Okay. Pallor, pale, dull. The faces of the slum children was really pallor. Okay, dull or pale. Stunted. Stunt means not fully grown. Stunt means not fully grown. The slum children are stunned due to malnutrition. Gnarled. Gnarled means twisted. Due to malnutrition, many children born with the disease like gnarled. Okay. Now let's see the poetic devices. In the very first line, students, the poetic device is in far, and that is repetition. Because F and F is being also repeated, so here you can use alliteration also. But here the main poetic device is what? Repetition. In the second line, like rootless weeds, because like is there, so automatically the poetic device is what, guys? Simile. Okay, next. Paper seeming boy. Here paper's features are being compared with the boy's feature. That's why we have used what? Metaphor speech over here. Okay. Now next is what? Rat's eyes. Now rat, if you see the rat properly, its body is really very small, and so that's because of its body is so small, so its eyes are more prominent. So here we have used metaphor speech. Okay, because we are comparing the rat's eye, the prominent eyes of rats on the face of that slum child. Next is of squirrel's game. Now here again poet has used metaphor speech. Squirrel is a very free type of a animal. It never mind of any that limitation to live. So that's why the boy in the given example wanted a life like squirrel. So that's why the poet has used the speech metaphor. Okay, so students, I hope that this much of the things you people have understood. I hope you will be doing all the work what I have told you over here in the fair copy. I'll be meeting you in my next video. By that time, please like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel, as well as ring the bell icon for the further notification. And please take good care of yourself.